Okay, last week I gave this presentation at World of Watson. I actually had a recording of it, a pre-recording of it, had kind of a few fits and starts, showed you how to, in some ways, debug the application I was building, and this time I wanted to have a clean recording of it. So this will be kind of the third or fourth time I've been through it. Hopefully we can get through it without any issues. I do a lot of presentations. I do them for business users and technical users, sometimes both. This presentation is for the technical user. I'm going to go into great detail. We're not going to have a lot of stuff to, slide decks and things like that. Look at Datacap. Sometimes it feels like for the first time you're looking at a green field. Where do I start, and how do I get to building my final application or my final building and turn that field into something that's actually usable? And demonstration, I really wanted to show you the structure of how I go about building applications. I'm going to start from scratch, from a green field, just installed Datacap, and build this up into an application that imports and exports from Box. The real interest here is from Box, but I also wanted to show how we build applications as well. Again, I wanted to show this going from a start to a finish, a blank field application all the way through to something that imports and exports from Box. Application document that I'm going to use has a barcode. We can get that off. I'm just going to get a few fields off of this to show you the setup of an application. If this is a presentation you're hoping to get, one of these, all these slides with tons of text on them, that's definitely not where you're going to get. You should have gone next door to watch that one. I am going to go and build an application from scratch, live, in front of the audience. And I did this and it worked and we got through it all right with like less than a minute to spare. So off we go right into the demo. So I have a cloud over here that has my application, and it has my file here that we're going to look at. That's the one we just looked at. And the first thing I always do is start with FastDoc admin to start building applications. You have to log into some application. One, it doesn't matter. Admin is always the default Datacap password, and I need to get at this application wizard. And so I start the application wizard. I'm going to choose my application name, and I'm going to call this one E4. So this would be, I think I did 3 was the demo, so this would be E4. In the demo, I used the name of the session, which was Ecm3231. In this case, we'll use E4. There are different templates I can start with. This is definitely a form template. Learning templates are applications like invoices where I have similar data on differing form types. And they can learn as they go. The users, the operators create the fingerprints as they go. And then I have a mobile template application as well. I'm going to choose the form template, go next. I can create all my document hierarchies here. I don't do that anymore. I don't tend to do them in the application. You should never change document and page type. As of Datacap 9, these are significant and they have special function and things identify them by name. So don't mess with those ones. From here, I typically just say finish and I'm done with my application. And now it says, do I want to connect to it when the wizard exits? And I say yes. It's going to show me the folder where I've put all the files, and that's nice to have. And then I'll switch back over here to my application, and it's called E4. I'm going to log into it now as a user. And the first step is to go and, this is FastDoc admin. And this is actually a client. I don't tend to use it as a client. Some people do. I like Datacap Studio to do my testing. The clients I use are the Navigator client and the desktop client, but you could use this as well. So this is my document hierarchy. I have to create them, and I'm going to, let's go look at this document one more time. This one here, it is a brokerage account, and I'm going to say account, add account. We'll call it the add account document. So I'm going to add a document type called add account doc. And I'm going to enable inheritance from document type. So this is why you never change the name of that, because lots of things identify it by name. So I'm going to inherit functionality from that. I'm going to say add a page type, and I'm going to say add account page. I'm going to enable the rule set from page. Add the page type. Now I'm going to add a couple fields. See, I'm clicking on the page type. I'm going to add a field called name. For fields, there are no actual rule sets that you configure, you inherit from, so you just add the field. And I'm going to add one more called SSN. You can go through and add all the document ones you want. Demonstration, we're mostly targeting Box as what's important, and I'm going to get to that in a second, so I'm just going to do 2 fields. I'm going to choose those. I've got those added. The next thing is I can say on this page type, on the page type, I want there to be a minimum 1, since it's a single page document, a maximum of 1, and the order is 1. Order could be 0, but if you have a multi-page document, you have a leading page or main page, and then the rest of them are trailing pages. So the main page, I would always say there's 1 of that, and the trailing pages, I would say, a minimum of 0 and a maximum, and no maximum. So 0, 0, and then I put the order at 2. So that's how you would start out a multi-page document. The next step is to kind of go and configure these rule sets. And I want to go configure the specific one I want to configure is this recognize pages and fields. This is where I can turn on OCR. So when I have this page type, I'm going to turn on read page and I'm going to load the zones. So this is going to load the zones from a fingerprint. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And I also want it to read the machine print. This is going to use OCRS, which is RicoStar, ScanSoft RicoStar. And OCRA is Abby, so I can change that. Sometimes it's really nice to save your results to a text file, especially if you're trying to find things in a document. For testing purposes, there will be a text file in the batch directory that you can look at, and that's nice. And I can have read barcodes on the page, but I guess there is one, and we can turn that on, but that's not part of this demo. I'm going to tell this field to read, and I'm going to say add that recognition text to the zone. We're going to create the zones in the fingerprint. I can also read handprint there. So now I'm basically done with this. If I look at the identify pages, you can see that at the batch level, pages are being identified by fingerprints, and I'm looking at the area towards the top of the page and about a third of the way down. I've got my problem value set up here. These are things you don't really have to change, but there's a lot of good things in this identify pages that you can use to change your application and build that out. So I'm going to save my application. My next step is to do my fingerprints. And fingerprints use existing documents, and we're going to compare the light and the dark areas on this form. It really, behind the scenes, does a little bit of it. It's finding where the text is and then identifying where those are. And it's matching up those locations, but you can consider it as light and dark areas to identify page type. It's really fast because there's not a lot of data that it has to compare to do that, and it's actually very accurate. First thing, though, I have to go and get that image. I'm going to use the TIFF file. I'm going to copy that to my application, E4, images, and single TIFFs, and I'm going to copy that. Now I have the image there, and I'm going to add first a .class, or a fingerprint class, and this is nice if you have a lot of fingerprints, you tend to want to give them classes. I'm going to call this the add account class, and I add that. And now I've got that class section selected. I'm going to choose to add a fingerprint. It's going to ask me where these are. That's the demo we did before. Now we're in E4, images, single TIFFs. I'm going to choose that. It's going to show it here. And every fingerprint has a doc type. In this case, it's other. So I'm going to assign this that if we find one that matches what this looks like, I'm going to make it an add account page. And these are going to be the locations where my Social Security number, my name, and Social Security number are. So there those are, and this application is actually ready to go. Fingerprints save automatically. You don't have to save them. And from here, I like to go back into Datacap Studio and test my applications from there. So I'm going to run Datacap Studio. I'm going to open that same application, E4. Now these are alphabetical. E4 it is. Say next. Log into admin. And I'm going to choose to go in this test tab. And the test tab is where I spend a good amount of time here. And I'm going to choose single TIFFs here. And I'm going to create a new batch here. And I'm going to choose that I want it to choose single TIFFs. And I'm going to say play. And this will go to that folder, read in those documents. It's part of that import documents action. You can configure that with the GUI actions as well. And now I can see that there's an image here, and I'm just going to say advance to the next level. It'll go through page ID, and what I'm looking for here is that this changes to a page type. It did, of page account doc type, and I can advance that. So now I've got this page. It's identified as page type account. It's in profiler mode, and the next step is where it does the actual OCR, and it knows the zones of these locations. Those will come out. It hasn't read those yet because it's in profiler where it does it, but it's going to read those zones, and it's going to get these text off this document. One thing about profiler, though, it has a batch split on it, which means that if a document isn't recognized well, it will go to verify. That causes problems with this test. So you can go into this routing tab, and I can actually do two things here. The first one is I can turn off the split batch, and sometimes, I do that, that's what I'm about to do. And sometimes if I want every document to go to verify, I can turn off this check document status, and then it'll set every one of them to have this needs verify value, which split batch uses, and if it's set, it sends it off to verify. So those are the two ways that I change this rule set on a regular basis. I'm going to lock that, I'm going to disable this split batch, and we're going to leave it off because this is going to be an automated processing system where a document comes in to Box and we're going to have it converted to PDF and send that off. I'm going to disable that, and I'm going to publish that rule set. Now when I run the test tab and I go into Profiler, which it's already in, you can see it's in Profiler mode, but I got to choose which task Profiler is going to run. I click play, and now it's going to go through this application and have the data there. One thing that's really nice about Datacap is I can tell this batch to keep running, or I can tell it to advance, and a lot of times I'll say keep running, and I'll make sure that the text is there. And if I missed one of those checkboxes or something and one of these is empty, I'll go back to the rule manager, I'll go do some changes on it, and I will fix that, and then come back here and just run Profiler again. If I run it again, it'll say, do you want to run again? You say yes, and so you can go through it over and over again, and then once you have it all dialed in, you can simply choose advance when it's all done, or I can do it from here, and now it's in export mode. So we're ready to move on to our Box export capability. I'm going to have to exit out of this. I'll reload the application in a second, but the Box actions aren't actually turned on by default. There's global ones, and then I'm going to make them local actions because I like my Box actions to be local. And I'm going to go over here to this Datacap RRS folder, and there's a Box folder, and these are the DLLs that are all the actions that Box uses. So these are available as a global action, like I said, but in this case, I want it to be separate for each and one of my applications. I'm going to copy those. I'm going to go back over to my E4 application. I'm going to go into the Datacap object directory, the rules folder, and I'm just going to drop all those in. Now I have my application ready to go in Box, and I have to do one more thing. I have to give this some secret public and private keys so it can actually talk to Box. I'm going to edit this with Notepad, and you can see there's these IDs here that I'm going to change. There's 3 there, and the same 3 are right here below. So if you change one, you got to change them both. And the next step is to go into Box and configure my application. So what I do is I go to developer.box.com. It's going to ask me to log in, and I'm going to log in with my enterprise account. This one's already been set up to log in. No, it hasn't. So I'll choose W. Harder for Box. That's my enterprise account. You have to have one of those, or it isn't able to get at the APIs. Okay, so I've logged into my Box application using developer.box.com. If you create a new application, you can't ever get rid of them. So I tend to just edit the ones that I have. I'm going to edit this application. I'm going to choose, I'm going to rename it to E4. Okay, and one thing you should do, always remember, is what'll happen is as I don't rename it, if I don't save it, then I go over to Datacap and I'm trying to export it. It's like, I don't know that application name, so just make sure you save it. So there's E4, I've renamed it, I've got my application. Here's those IDs that I need. And I need to go and select this one. Okay, Control C. Oops, I don't think I selected it. This one's a hard one to select. Select this data, Control C, and I'm going to go back over to my text file, and this is the client ID. Okay, I'm going to put that in. I'm making sure there's no spaces at the beginning and end because those will cause problems, and I'll replace the client ID here. I have to change those after I do this recording, but that's part of the deal. And now here's the secret value, and I'll copy that. I just will click on that to get all of that. And I'll go back over here and change the secret value here. And right here. And this one is an HTTP 127.0.0.1 slash, and I'll do the same thing here. So I forgot to go back and look at the time, but it was something like 6 or 7 minutes to get that application working. So you can really get up and moving pretty quick once you know Datacap and can build these applications pretty quick. I build a couple of these a week, it seems like, and been doing that for a while in a pre-sales role. So there I have all my data in here. I saved that. Now I can go back to Datacap Studio and exit out of this. And I'm going to re-log in just to make sure everything's clear, because it's got to reload those DLLs. I can simply, it's actually pretty good at doing this stuff. There's E4. I've had a lot of success but just because it's a demo, I want it to be clear. I've had a lot of success of going to the action library and clicking this button, and it'll go reload all of those. But you can see here now that I've got a bunch of Datacap and Box actions that I can use in my application. But what I really have that's nice is I have this export to Box UI. Now here's that same one we did before on the recognized pages and fields and the import files and things like that. But in this case, I can get at that UI right from Datacap Studio. And the first thing I have to do is I have to log into that account again. And this is going directly to Box, saying, are you going to validate access? And it's using that public and private key, but it still has one more gate that we have to get through. wharder for Box. And I've logged in. It says, do you want to grant access? And I'm saying yes. So now it's associated that public and private key. The other thing is I'm going to do, what I should have done is created a folder in Box. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to create a folder in Box that I have here. That's the application. I'm just going to go to box.com, and let's create a folder just for E4. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call one called E4. That's going to be for our import. We'll come back to that later. And the other one is going to be for export. And this one's going to create a new folder, E4 export. And then do one more called E4M for mobile, because we're going to do some mobile stuff as well. I'll show you that capability. So there's those 4 folders, E4M, E4, E4 export. Now, the first kind of export I'm going to do is I'm going to use sync and share, and then I'm going to set it up with the Box APIs. You can use either. So since this one is ready, I'm just going to say share. I'm going to go to properties, and I'm going to say sync this to the computer. I'm going to sync that folder, and I can see here from my previous demo, this one's still there. So just so you know that I'm doing this from scratch, I'm going to turn off sync on that. And I've got this machine set up with Box Sync, and you can see that there's a Box Sync folder here. I'm going to go back here, and you can see now there's just an E4 folder. So that's coming through Box Sync, and that's how we're going to get our documents in here in just a minute. So there, I'm ready to do my export. Now I'm going to go back. I should have created those ahead of time. Where do I want to export this to? If I do settings and I choose that folder, it should have an E4 here. E4 export is where I want it to go. I'm going to have it create a subfolder with the batch ID, all automatic. What I do with versions if they overlap. And I'm going to say you create a PDF as it goes out. And I'm going to say save. And the next step is to test it out to see if this works. And so now I can simply go back here. It's in export mode already. Now we've logged out and logged back in, so it's on hold. So I have to actually pick it, which means now it's running, and I can go and look at it and see that, yeah, it still has all that data. And I can choose export mode. It's already chosen. And I click play, and it should now export this to Box. And the fact that that went really fast is kind of a sign that nothing actually happened. So let me go and double check that. Oh, I know what it is. So you get to see a problem as well. Since that went fast, I know it didn't work. And the problem is I didn't turn on that Box rule set here. It's not one of the export rule sets. So I can lock this, put export from Box there. Bottom, top, doesn't really matter. The existing exports that are kind of out of the box in this template application are okay. They do some XML files or some CSV files and that. But now it's there. And this is where you get to see that test tab. Hey, I can just come back here. Remember I said keep running. I can run export again. And do I want to run it again? I say yes. And there it goes. It's taking the longest time, so it's going to do the export. What's taking the time here is really that PDF creation. It's going to do it's going to take all that OCR data associated with the image and put it out as a single PDF. I can keep it running, but now we can go back to our Box folder here and go into E4, and I can see that if I refresh here, oh, E4 export, all files, E4 export. If I go there, there's the file we just exported. It's got the PDF here. It's a text searchable PDF. And if I go to the info tab, I can see all of my files here. So like 10, 15 minutes, I've got a full application going, exporting out to Box. Now the next step is this import piece, and as I said, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to import this from Sync and Share, and this one takes a little bit more kind of thought, and I'm going to change this import files that instead of using this folder, the scan image folder, which is part of the Datacap application, I'm going to change the settings on this, and I'm going to change it to be that box folder. So, and I've had some trouble with this, so you got to quit out of Datacap Studio, I think, to really get it to load those values in the test tab. So what I'm going to do is, where I'm at box sync here, I'm going to go to this E4 folder, and that's the value that I'm going to copy, and I'm going to put that in this space here, and I'm going to put it in my copy to folder. So I want a folder here called E4. Okay, I'm going to hook this up to a thread, and I don't want the thread to just keep going on the same document, so I want to move it out of the way when it's done, and I'm going to say save on that. But what I have to do also is I have to create that done folder. So I'll just create it here. I could do it in Box. I could do it anywhere. Since this is Sync and Share, I can click done here, say enter. Now this will be synced. It's blue. It's already synced. So it's on the site now. And now documents that come in from, now when we do an import on this, it should bring the document in and load it. Now, since I changed the setting in the application tab, in the Datacap application manager, a value, I need to reload this application. I'm just making sure. I'm going to re-log into it, and it should reload it to get all of those values. Now, if I really want to test this, to be sure, I'm going to go back and remove the file from the images folder, from the single tip. I'm going to go cut here. I'm going to move it over to that box folder, which is E4. I'm going to paste it here, and now the file doesn't exist. So in Datacap Studio, if it's importing those files from the old location, then it won't get anything, and I'll know immediately that it's not working. So I'm going to choose this single TIFF. This one we put on hold before, and we quit out. I can simply delete it, cancel it, leave it alone, whatever, but I'm going to delete it so it doesn't mix me up at all. I'm going to choose new. I'm going to choose single TIFFs here. I'm going to say play, and off I go to importing that file from that sync folder, that sync local folder. It does look like it worked. It got the file. I can say advance, and now it'll just go through the system and read those files in. So let's just go and test this. Let's test this with a thread. I'm going to show you how to turn on a thread now and get this going. I'm going to cancel that batch. Okay, go full circle on this. I'm going to cancel that batch. I'm going to bring up the Rule Runner Manager. I'm going to log into it. Since we changed the DCO and added a new application, I'm going to log back into it. I'm going to connect. Here's my workflows. I'm going to turn off any other threads. I'm going to create a new thread. I can have all these running, whatever you want to do. Typically, you do one thread per core, but in this case, it's a demo system, so we have a whole lot of threads that run, and all of them are pretty lightweight. I'm going to choose that E4 application, and I'm going to choose which tasks I want it to run. First, I want to run vScan, Page ID, Profiler, and Export. Now, we are skipping Verify step, but if you had the Verify step in set, you would also probably choose this export as well. So after the person, if it went to verify, after the person verified, it would also do that export. I'm not going to choose it because we're only going straight through. I'm going to drag these over to my thread, and there it is. I can save it, and it says, not everything's currently running. We're going to wait till all the current batches are done before we make the final change. I'm going to force the issue and push stop, and there's one more thing I have to do. This took me a little while to figure out, so but I'm going to show you. If I go to my Datacap application manager and I go to my application, there's one thing here that there is a rule runner tab here. If you create a new task profile type, you've got to put it in here in that name, or else Datacap will not recognize it. And if I come back over to Rule Manager, I'm going to see that my task name is Scan from Disk Single TIFFs, and what we have here is Scan from Disk Multi-Format. So it'll choose the wrong task profile here if I don't change this. This is Rule Runner, which one Rule Runner is using. SINGLETIFF. No idea why there's a separate tab. Someone should have been able to go get this data right out of the same place that Datacap Studio is getting it. But in this case, just so you know, there's a separate tab for Rule Runner, and it will cause problems if you don't turn it on right. Now, the next thing is I'm going to turn that Rule Runner on. Now it should be watching that folder and getting that data. Let me do one more thing. When I like to watch this stuff, I tend to do it through the TM Web. You can also do this through Navigator, but I'm going to choose my application here and choose E4 and go to Admin and choose it from there. Let's see. So I'm going to choose, it's running, it's looking at vScan, it's waiting for files. We're going to go to our box folder here, and there it is. I'm going to go to my, not E4 export, I'm going to go to E4 folder here, and we have to be quick about this. I'm going to go find that file, Ecm3231. I'm going to drop this in there. Okay, I'm going to jump over to my sync and share right as I get it. So I'm going to jump from there, go over to my sync folder. The file appeared and is gone before we even got it. So Datacap is processing this. We can know for sure by monitoring the work queue. This job is now in profiler mode. It's running. It's been through page ID, and then it's going to go into export mode, and we'll have our whole application running straight through. Export is running now, and the next step, it's done, and now it's running another vScan, waiting for something to appear in that folder, and I can come over here to my box folder, go into that export and see that, again, there's the new one, it's batch number 2, and there's the file. It's the same file, so it has the same data, but if we have the same format file, we can drop that one in there, and it's going to start processing those straight to PDF. That's how simple it is. If I didn't want any fields off here and I just wanted it to go straight to PDF, I don't have to do anything beyond that. I don't have to create fields. I just create a simple doc type and have it go through. So it's really simple to create these kinds of applications. The last piece is I wanted to import through the API layer. It's also very simple to turn on. I'm going to turn off this, since I'm doing my Datacap Studio, I'm going to turn off this Rule Runner tab just for a minute while I work through changing this. Instead of using import files, I'm going to have it use import from box. First thing I have to configure this, I'm going to again log into the import side of it, same name, be harder for box, and let's see, do I want to grant access? I'd say yes. I'm going to choose my source folder. In this case, I'm going to choose E4. In this case, I'm going to choose my backup folder, and I'm going to choose E4/done, again, so it doesn't override it. These are the types of files that I want to import. Do I want to change its type immediately? I don't really care. I'm going to import all the files that are there. I can choose a number of files per batch, things like that. And I simply save it and close it. And now I've configured that, and we have to come over here to our scan from single TIFFs, and we have to configure this rule set, and that's it. I'm going to delete this one, import files, which is this nice UI rule set, and I'm going to move this one over there, save it, and now when I turn on Rule Runner, well, let's just watch it through Datacap Studio. First off, I'll put that file back into that E4 folder. Drag it from here so you see exactly what it's doing. This one here, there it's sitting there, nothing's waiting for it. And the way I can tell this is working is when I go into the Test tab. If you were paying attention, I'm going to delete this one because it's part of the Rule Runner one. I'm going to click on a new vScan action, again, single TIFFs, and I can put play. It's going to take a little bit, and then the image is going to appear here, and it's going to have a different name. Before it had TM001, now it has the actual file name of it. So I know that it came in a different way than that vScan from that system folder, and I can just say, cancel this batch, and sure enough, that the image should be out of that folder. I'm going to refresh this. I'll just reload it here. Refresh this, the file should be gone. And now if I drop it in, if I drop another file in there and I turn on Rule Runner, you'll see it disappear. So that is this file, drop another one in there, and it's ready to go. When I turn on Rule Runner, it should start. Now it's using the Box API later. So less than about 30 minutes, and I have my Box application from start, from a green field, off and running, processing these documents. If I refresh this, the file should be gone. There it's gone, and it's processing on it, and any time now, it'll arrive into the Box folder. And I can, I'm watching it there, it's running in export mode. and any second it'll be done. So next, let's move on to mobile. Okay, so the next step is to know that when I'm in the doc folders, there is a nice file that I can do something with that comes right from Datacap. And that file is this DCO file. If I look in my application, the actual application, all of that DCO, all of these document, all this document hierarchy over here is all stored in what we call a DCO file. And that file exists in your application under this DCO underscore application name file, and it's called, in this case, e4.xml. Now, if I look at that file, it's got a lot of data in it that can allow me to leverage this in a box and mobile application. The only thing is that when I create, just so you know, if you create your fingerprints in FastDoc, it doesn't do one piece, and that is to set the locations, the zonal locations of where the data actually is in this. So I'm going to have to go back and recreate, do a little bit with my fingerprints right here to get this working. And in this case, there should be a default position. You can see the position of this is right here on this fingerprint, but there should also be a default position. And so it's really easy to add. I'll simply go and change this fingerprint and just change the name location, and I'll change it to here and give this my default position. And when I'll do the same thing for Social Security number. I'll just create a blank area, move it out of the way, and now I'll put another one right here. And now when I save this and lock it, you can see that now I have this default position. So I have the proper structure now for leveraging this with Box. You need that default position or it won't. It'll take that on the device, and as you take a picture and it identifies this page type, it will do the OCR right on the device. So it'll be a lot faster with that. And so now that we have the fingerprint created, we go back, and the Datacap on Box application uses barcodes to identify the document type. So when I go to identify pages, I can come up here and say settings. And remember, we opened this before and we chose fingerprinting was the default. These are all the defaults. I can also choose barcode recognition as one of the types. In this case, I know I have a code 39 barcode. We saw this right here. That's this barcode. The value is ABC1234. And I'm going to say a mapping here. So if I find that, I'm going to add a mapping. If the barcode value is ABC-1234, let me make sure that's right. ABC-1234. If that's the type, I want my page type to be add account page. So that's a nice piece of information that's also going to end up in this Box application. So again, now I save that, and you'll see when I close that out and I go back and look at my DCO file. Remember, this DCO file is all the data about this application. E4 in the E4 application, there's a DCO folder. There's this e4.xml. That's the file we're going to use, and I'm going to drop that into my Box folder. So if I go into my E4M, which we created that earlier, and I drop that file, we'll rename it real quick. I'll rename it to it needs to be DCO.xml in all lowercase. Now I can look at that file and see that it has a lot of data involved in it. And this data talks about what are the document types. I've got my batch type here. I've got my document type here. Remember, we created one called add doc type. And then I've got my page types here with the account page type. And now you see I've got this barcode identity. If the mobile device finds that barcode, it's going to assign it this page type, and then it's going to do the OCR based on these names and these default positions that we just created. So let's move over to our mobile device, my iPad, and look at the demo from the rest of the way from there. So here's my iPad. I've just logged into it. I've got a Datacap application here at the bottom. I'm going to turn that on. The first thing I'm presented is the type of application I'm going to choose. In this case, I'm going to choose Box, and I'm going to log into my account. I'm going to cover up the screen while I do that. Okay, I've authorized access to, I've logged in, and now it wants me to grant access, and I'll say grant access to Box. And I'm going to go find that folder where I put that DCO file. It's going to show all my folders. So I put in E4M, and there it is, and I simply choose select. And now the application is there, and you have to go take a picture of a document, so it's ready to take pictures. What's nice about this is I simply have to find the document or align the document, and it'll automatically find the edges and take the picture. I don't click any buttons to do that. So I'm going to come out here, put it on the document, and it takes a picture of it. On the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see the image appear. It's already been cropped, and all of the data, the extraneous data is removed. When I go next, based on that barcode, it identified that this is an account page type, and it's gotten off the 2 values based on those default positions. Remember, we added those from the application. Now, that's pretty much everything I need. I simply click on upload, and that file will now upload to that box folder. I can see in the upper left here that it's doing some work. Now that icon disappeared, and I can move back over my box application, and if I refresh this, I will see that this file just came in. That's me that put it in there. And here's that account opening document, and it has my the data that was the social security number and the name that came off of that. So that is the complete demo. I'm going to switch back to the slides. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And this is the URL you can find that recording. It's on Box, and I'll try to place it somewhere else as well. But that's the full recording of how to create an application and go from start to finish and create Box import, Box export, and an application that creates text searchable PDFs. So thank you for your time.